So we are at Imola here, and as you can see, the car on the front row of the grid in pole position here is Bobby Matthews, and well, he can win the BRT Solo League Championship today, and by putting it on pole position, he has really helped his chances at winning the championship. With his main rival Babin not racing today, he doesn't have to put in a great display, but he's already started off well with pole position. Alongside him is Rosen Pashov in P2, first out of the silver drivers. That's the highest a silver driver has qualified this year on the front row of the grid. P3 is Fashad. He struggled a lot in the build up to this race, trying to get a good setup in the Ferrari, but it looks like he got one together and he starts in third. Behind him is Byrne, second out of the silvers, fourth overall. His best qualifying to date. Byrne having a really good qualifying, putting in a really good lap together, and he'll be looking to try and get some really good points. P5 is Fantozzi in the Ferrari, and just behind him in the other Ferrari is Robs. He is third out of the silvers, and he did really well in qualifying to out-qualified Johansson, one of the silver championship favourites there, just behind in P7. He will be looking to capitalise on the fact that Watson is starting at the back of the grid, his main rival being Watson and Pashov ahead. He'll be looking for a good result. Behind him is the Porsche of Letkeman, the Canadian, putting it in 8th and 5th out of the silvers. He'll be looking to try and get a good result today. P9 just behind him is newcomer Laird, the Scotsman, 4th out of the pros, 9th overall. He is having some invitational entries as he will want to join the season next year. And just behind him, rounding off the top 10, is Renault, 6 out of the silvers, 10th overall. P11 is Tan, the American, having missed out on the overall points so many times this year, coming 11th and 12th. He'll be looking to try and come 10th this race. Behind him is Bosman in P12. And P13 is the Bentley of McNamara. Not a great qualifying for him, considering the Bentley is pretty strong on this track. He'll be looking to try and move up the order. P14 is Gandhi. And behind him is the last car to do its qualifying, and that is Cupers, who qualified on pole out the AM, the only AM driver to do qualifying. He starts 15th. Behind him in 16th is Nordell, the first of the cars who have grid penalties this race. He obviously drops down to 16th as he has to start due to grid penalties. Behind him in 17th, or currently ahead on track, is Herkaba. He'll be starting 17th. 18th, Yi. He could seal the AM Championship today. He just needs to come first, and no one can do anything about it. So an AM win for him would be great today. Watson in 19th and Privot in 20th at rounding off the grid there. Watson will be really looking to try and move up the order today. So silver championship cannot be sealed, but overall championship can. Also the AM championship can be sealed if Tim Yee manages to win out of the AM drivers here today. And it's a long run to the line here, but sooner or later the lights will go green, and there they go, and you see the Bentley of McNamara pull out and the Bentley of Watson pull out in the background. The Bentleys get a great start off the line. Even Burns got a good start at a run at Fashad, but between Pashov and Matthews into the corner, Matthews has the inside line, manages to hold on, and Pashov has to settle for second. Behind though, Byrne and Fashad still going side by side. Fashad has the inside line. He managed to hold on to third. Behind that though, Byrne under pressure from Fantozzi, and Fantozzi under pressure from Johansson, and in the background there you saw the pink Aston of Gandhi spear into the wall. Some drama behind there. Meanwhile, Byrne manages to hold on to 4th place, second in the silver class. Fantozzi trying to get past the silver driver so he could attack fellow pro drivers, but behind him, Johansson now side by side with Robs. This is for P3 in silver class. Johansson really trying to get this position as early as possible, and down the inside he goes, and he gets that position. And Rob's now under pressure from Letkeman. He had a good qualifying, but moving down the order now, gets it all wrong into Aqua Minerali. and across the bumps, almost loses it. Ledkman almost runs into the back of him, has to hit the brakes. That allows Renault through, and Laird also having a run on Ledkman, and Laird having a run on Renault now. Can Laird get 2 positions? Yes, he can. Laird, 2 positions coming out of Aqua Minerale. A great start from him, just behind there. Nordell and Tan side by side, the 2 Mercedes drivers going at it here. Pro driver Nordell will probably have this move done now, coming down into Rivazza behind the Bentley of Watson, also getting a move done, and Prevot also sneaking up the inside of Bosman, following Watson through there. Now here, big drama as Nordell peels into the pits, and so does Watson, so does Herkova, and watch Watson here, brakes too early, and Herkova just, I think, didn't realise how early Watson brakes and goes straight into the back of the Bentley. Severe damage to the rear of that Bentley. You'll see there the bumper hanging off a bit there, and the front of that Aston Martin. That has really already made the race harder for these two, as they'll have to have much longer pit stops while they fix the damage. So let's have a look at the race start on board Watson, because a lot of drama can be seen from his perspective. Also a brilliant race start. Most of the Bentleys, they are good off the line, but that has to be paired with good reactions, and just watch Watson here. Behind Cupers, Herkova, Nordell, and Tim Yee on his right-hand side here. And look, as the lights go green, look at that reaction. Off he goes, past Cupers, past Yee, past Herkova, and now look at this. Flies past Cupers, and if it wasn't for the Aston Martin ahead, he probably would have had a go at Nordell up ahead of him. He leaves room on the inside, doesn't want to get taken out by any cars behind him when he knows how long the Bentley is. And here was the drama with Gandhi. He's eclipsed the front of that Mercedes coming across. Don't think he realised the Mercedes was on the inside there, and spears himself into the barrier here. Watson tries to go on Nordell, but thinks better of it, thinks, no, I'd rather not come together with him this early on in the race. As they come now into Tosa, into the hairpin, Bosman goes wide as Nordell goes through on the South African. Now Watson is thinking, okay, I need to keep as close as possible to that pro driver, because he is good at getting through the traffic here. Watson has a little look on the inside. Bosman leaves the gap, but Watson doesn't go for it. Doesn't want to, you know, take anyone out or tangle with anyone. But coming down here, this is where we saw Robs obviously make the mistake, and a lot of cars affected by him having that big slide here up ahead there. You see him on the grass, a lot of cars going through there. Even Nordell managing to find a way through, and Watson sees the opportunity here to lunge down the inside of the South African. Well, the outside, which will turn to the inside here, takes a lot of curb here, tries to squeeze out the South African, but gives him plenty of room. Good racing by the two of them. A lot of cars tangle at that chicane, but the two of them keeping it clean. And here we'll see from the back Watson just having the momentum, and Prevot here sees the opportunity, and down the inside of Bosman he went, the Frenchman following his fellow Frenchman Watson, and the two of them making up those positions. Now here, this was the drama. Look how far back Herkova is. Watson does brake earlier than usual, but Herkova just not reacting it to whatsoever, and really ploughing into the back of that Bentley. And yeah, that's after a good start for Watson, not a good way to end the first lap. On to lap 5, well, Bobby Matthews, 5.6 seconds ahead of P2 already. He was not messing around. He knew he could steal the championship today, and he was going to do it in style. So him, 5.6 seconds ahead, cruising bar a disaster to a race win. However, behind him, there everyone was grouped up. Pashov holding on to second so far, but pro driver Fashad wanting that second place overall, as that's what counts towards him. Pashov, though, he'll be happy with a pro car between him and fellow silver class driver Byrne just behind there. But Byrne, meanwhile, he's trying to fend off the cars behind him. He's got Fantozzi, another pro driver, fighting him, and he's trying to hold that Ferrari behind. And behind Fantozzi is Johansson, and you can see they're taking a lot of curb, even a bit of grass there. Now, big drama here, and as they come now into Piratella, watch the touch on the back of Fantozzi. Fantozzi drifts around that corner and does ever so well to hold on to the Ferrari there, and manages to get away with that. But Johansson running into the back of them there, just outbraking himself, and luckily not too much damage done to either car, just a bit of time lost by the both of them. Fashard goes deep there. Byrne sees the opportunity. He knows that Bentley has the speed, especially coming out of Variante Alta. That's where the Ferrari struggles and the Bentley exceeds. But not close enough yet to make a move on the Ferrari driver. Let's have a look at that replay of Johansson coming together with Fantozzi. We'll have a look here from the back of the Bentley for a Byrne here, because Fantozzi does ever so well to keep this car from spinning. The way he hits there, hits into the back, hits that sausage curb, and just, I don't know if that restabilized the car and helped him, but what a catch by Fantozzi in there. Johansson goes off into the gravel, but both of them, not too much damage to one another, but a bit of time lost by that collision, but they were looking to recover throughout the race. Lap 8, well, we're back on board the Bentley of Byrne, and like we said, Variante Alta is where the Ferrari struggles, and watch Fashard here, gets the bounce all wrong. The Bentley, well, those curbs don't feel like anything in that car, gets a much better exit, gets squeezed onto the grass slightly. It's quite wide, the Bentley, and he needs the space, and he manages to get through. Doesn't go fully onto the racing line, make sure he parks it slightly in the middle, stop Fashard trying to get past him into the braking zone, and now onto the straight. Well, the Ferrari is not a slow car down the straight, but neither is the Bentley, pretty good in a straight line. So for now, it looks like Byrne will hold on to what is P3 overall as it stands. And P3 overall is the highest Byrne has ever been before, and that was from Bathurst in season 1 last year, where Byrne managed to get a P3 overall. Lap 9, well, we go on to this little group of cars. Renault P6, Letkman, Led P7, Letkman P8, and Tan P9. Now Renault gets it all wrong coming out of the corners, and the Porsche really struggling with straight line speed at this track. And when you make a mistake like that coming out the final corner, well, just look at the straight line speed of Led in the Aston Martin. Just flies past him like he wasn't even there, and Led moves up into P6. However, Led goes a bit deep, and Renault tries to come back at him here. The Porsche much better in the corners than the Aston. Led does well to move out the way there, gives him plenty of room. Good, fair racing. Letkman trying to join the two of them. He has a little look down the inside, thinks better of it, you know. 3 cars don't fit into one there. And even 2 at a push is hard. Led goes a bit on the sand. Renault trying to hang around the outside here, but we know the Aston Martin is the best on the power and in a straight line. So Led for now holds on to the position as they come into Piratella now. The fast left-hander down the hill towards Aqua Minerale. Turns 11, 12, and 13. Now watch on the exit of Aqua Minerale here. Led goes deep, and that allows Renault to get a run on him up the hill towards Variante Alta. This big chicane, and he already makes the move before they even get into the chicane. Takes a lot of curb there, but makes the move stick. And Renault moves back up to P6, which is really good from him. Renault P4 in silver class, Letkman P5, and Tan there at the back, P6 in silver class. Led, obviously being an invitational entry, is put into pro, as Renault gets it all wrong coming out of that corner, which means he gets a narrow line out the final corner out of Ravazza 2. And look at that, that means Led, once again with that Aston Martin straight line speed, cruises past the Porsche driver as they come around turn 19, which is actually technically the final corner. Actually, turn 1, which is now turn 2 and 3 they're going into. And Renault will be trying to use that Porsche's downforce superiority as we sit on board here, and watch as they come through now. Oh, Led, bit too much curb there, loses the back end, manages to catch it. Renault though finds a little gap there, squeezes his Porsche in, has the inside into Tosa. And up the hill they go. However, like mentioned last lap, Aston Martin, pretty good in a straight line. The two of them, little wheel banging there. Renault saying, I'm still on your inside, don't cut me off, don't take me out. Two of them side by side into Piratella. Laird hanging it around the outside. He now has the inside down into Aqua Minerale. And look at that, Tan down the inside of Letzkerman while that is going on. He sees the opportunity, he makes a move. However, he goes deep, just like Laird went deep. What does that mean? Renault pulls away, Letzkerman gets back past Tan, and almost he's going to pick past Laird down the inside. Not quite. Laird gives him enough room, but gives him a bit of a squeeze and says, no, you're not trying it from that far back. And for now, Laird holding on to P7. However, Renault running away now with these guys battling behind. He's trying to pull out a gap, and you see in the background there the Bentley of McNamara. He's closed up massively as these guys are battling one another. Letzkerman here getting a much better run than Laird as, ooh, Tan gets it all wrong and somehow catches it. Look how close the Bentley and McNamara is. Now here, this is where you see the huge difference in straight line speed. Letzkerman so close to the back of the Aston Martin with the slipstream, with a better exit, and he just cannot get past in a straight line. The Porsche really struggling at this track with straight line speed. Laird though goes deep across the curves. Letzkerman on the outside here, brakes nice and early, switches it back. Now he's going to have the inside for the next set of corners and makes the move stick. As Letzkerman gets a bit squiggly on the exit. Tan now, he sees the opportunity. Is he going to get the Scotsman? He's going to have to go all the way around the outside. We know the Mercedes is good on traction, but gets a bit too eager. You see the Mercedes squiggle there as he gets too eager on the throttle. And Laird for now holds on to P8. McNamara though really closing in on these guys. He's trying to join the battle now. Letzkerman runs a bit wide there coming out of Piratella. Not sure if that was track limits or not. We will have to see. But for now, it's Renault in P6 who's opened up quite a bit at the back. Letzkerman P7, Laird 8th, Tan 9th, and McNamara catching the back of this group in 10th place. So moving away from that group, lap 12, and this was really sad to see. So Byrne currently running in third, not pulling away from Fashard too much, but is actually gaining on Pashov a bit. And just watch here as he comes down the hill. Well, his monitor just turned off. His monitor went black, turned off, and he had to pull off to the side. Does the right thing to pull off the track, stop the car, doesn't impede anyone's race or put anyone at danger of crashing with him. But yeah, and he did fix his monitor, then it went off again, just some sort of hardware issue. And for someone who was running in third overall, it finally gets going again, but then you see Tan going through and he comes out just ahead of fellow Bentley driver McNamara. He heads straight for the pits as he tries to fix this issue while he's in the pits, it looks like. And yeah, for someone that was running in third and potentially second for a class win and an overall podium, when it's something completely out of his reach, something that, you know, he didn't do, no mistake or anything, it's really sad to see that's how his race ended. But one car's loss is another car's gain. So now Fashard in P3, but he runs wide onto the sand, which means Johansson is going to have a go at the Frenchman. Johansson having to go the long way around, but getting squeezed a bit there, but has the traction down. Now Johansson is P2 in silver class now, but the Byrne had to pit with that issue. Johansson though hanging it right around the outside. Watch this, keeps it within track limits, within the white line, and makes the move stick. One of the best overtakes I've seen this season around the outside there. Absolutely brilliant by the Norwegian driver, and he moves up into P3 now, into overall podium position. 2 silvers in the podium positions at the moment, which would be brilliant to see as the silver drivers, the top silver drivers, are getting faster and faster. I think we'll definitely be seeing those guys in the pro class next season as he tries to go on to hunt down Pashov. However, well, that joy didn't last too long. Coming around the start of the next lap on the curb, a bit too early on the power, a bit too much curb, loses the back end across the gravel, gets onto the little slip road there, but as he comes back, oh, loses the back end. I think he just underestimated the variation in, you know, height between the grass and the tarmac. Does get going again, luckily for him, ahead of that gaggle of silver drivers battling behind him, because he did not want to get stuck behind that. However, the big thing here was that loss of time not only loses him the podium position, but more importantly loses delta to Watson. Remember, Watson and Nordell both pitting right at the start of the race. They are in clean air right now, putting in some great lap times. So Johansson losing it there means he is now in the window of Watson when he pits. So it'll be interesting to see what happens when these guys up ahead pit and where Nordell and Watson come out. So lap 16, well, that's when Johansson did pit, and he comes out of the pits here. Now, he was in the range of Watson, that's what we said with that spin. He fell towards the range of him. He was meant to be well ahead of him, but where was he now? We did have a little sound of a V8 rumble as he came through first chicane there, but it was here where we will see it in the flesh. There it is, the green Bentley of Watson. Now, Johansson was meant to clear him by quite a way had he not had that spin. Now, as they come up here to finish sector 1, the important thing is what is the gap between the two of them, and the gap is 4.1 seconds between the two of them. 4.1 seconds between Watson and Johansson, and well, let's say it was going to be more than double that had Johansson not had that spin as he goes deep at Aqua Minerale, so that's going to close the gap even more between the two of them as they come up the crest here towards Variante Alta, and there's the green Bentley of Watson looking menacing in the background. So these two now, both done their pit stops, they're going to be going at it to try and get second place in silver class, with Pashov quite a way up the road, and he probably will be once he pits. But with Pashov, Johansson and Watson being 1, 2 and 3 in class, we see the three main silver championship challengers really going at it today, hopefully. Meanwhile, Nordell up the road. Now, we mentioned Nordell being one of the guys that obviously did a really big undercut. Now, because Herkaba and Watson came together, obviously Watson having a 20-second pit stop to fix the damage compared to Nordell's 3-second pit stop just to refuel. So Watson lost a lot of time. So had Watson not been rear-ended by Herkaba, he would be right on the back of this pack and would have cleared Johansson when Johansson pit. However, well, it's never drama when getting past cars, as Nordell here tries to get past the McLaren of Prevot, and the two of them touch together, and there you see Cooper's also losing it by himself. And yeah, absolutely frustrating for Nordell. Now, these two weren't back markers because they had not pitted. However, on a completely different strategy, and Nordell had already pitted, he well had the pace. The fact that he had pitted and re-caught them it really should have been easy for him to get through. This shouldn't have put up much of a fight, even though they didn't have to yield. I think Nordell will be pretty frustrated that he came together with the McLaren there, and for him that means he loses time to cars ahead like Fantozzi and Fauchard, which fellow pro drivers for him. Also puts him in reach now of Johansson and Watson, which, although Nordell a pro driver and much quicker, these two really are going for a silver championship here. So these two are really on the limit. They are doing pro driver pace and, you know, playing a bit of cat and mouse them two as Watson tries to catch Johansson. Johansson will go as fast as he can. Watson will go as fast as he can. So these two now will be wanting to catch Nordell and get past him, and use really him as a card to put between the two of them as they try and fight it out. Lap 18, we're on with Letzkeman here, and look how close he is to Runo now. Manages to close down that gap after he got past Led, and look at that, right on the back of fellow Porsche driver here. And the Canadian here tries to pull out the slipstream, but you know, Porsche versus Porsche, well, the straight line speed's pretty much identical. It's really going to be who's going to be the last of the late breakers. Let's look at the lights. Well, they break pretty much the same time. Lexman, though, on the inside. Renault can't take his usual turning point. Lexman hangs it round. Renault has to go across the curb, and he makes that move stick. Brilliant overtake by the Canadian. He gets ahead of Renault now. And you see Laird and Tan in the background there. Now, what's important with this group, they've been battling for so much, it depends where they're going to come out once they pit. Letzkerman looks like right now he'll come out right around where Watson is, maybe just behind Watson. So now that he's ahead of Renault, he's going to have to put a shift in here and put in some really good laps if he wants to come out ahead of Watson. And what could end up being a podium in silver class if he puts in some really good laps and comes ahead of Watson and even Johansson if he can manage that. To have a look at that, well, we use Laird here. You see Watson there fly past Laird as Laird pit. Now remember, Laird was not too far behind Letzkerman and Renault, so it'll be interesting to see the delta between Laird and Watson once Laird crosses the timing line, because he was about 3 seconds behind Letzkerman when he went into the pits. So as he comes across the timing line, it'll be interesting to see how far he is behind Watson, and we can kind of figure out whether Watson will be ahead or behind Renault and Letzkerman when those guys pit. As it's been fluctuating every lap depending on, you know, lapped cars and so on and so on. Now, Laird here, the gap to Watson is 6.2 seconds. 6.2 seconds. So, as it stands, Watson would be 3 seconds ahead of Letzkerman if Letzkerman were to pit now. However, Letzkerman in clear air can put in some really good laps, so it'll be really interesting now to see what happens with this strategy game. Lap 29, well, this is not what Watson would have wanted. Lapped cars he's going to have to get through, and there you see Gandhi tangling with McNamara, sends McNamara off. Johansson also goes on to the gravel there as he tries to get past Gandhi, and that slows him down massively. He goes defensive there as he sees Watson catching at much faster speed. Watson now sitting right behind, goes from being about 1.6 seconds behind Johansson to now being less than half a second behind as they come up the hill now. Gandhi, fellow Aston Martin driver, is he going to make life easy for Johansson when he lets him through? Because Gandhi in silver class will know how important this battle is between these two silver championship contenders. Gandhi lets Johansson through but makes it awkward for Watson as Watson has to try and hang it around the outside of Piratella and down into Aqua Minerale. Gandhi backs out of it knowing he is a lapped car, but Watson, well, although he gained time on Johansson there, he's now dropped back towards the 2 second gap marker. He'll be hoping that these blue flag cars ahead hopefully make life a bit easier for him as he tries to get past them, because he wants to not only battling against Johansson ahead, but he'll be battling against time as he wants to put in some good laps so that he can be ahead of Letzkerman once Letzkerman serves his pit stop. Well, lap 39, that is when Letzkerman comes out, and here he goes into the pits and slows down nice and early for the line. Make sure he doesn't get a stop-go penalty for speeding in the pit lane. There up ahead you see Pashov and Fashard doing their pit stop, and they'll be coming out in second and third, so they're having a decent race so far. Letzkerman now into the pits, and now big moment here. Renault, you can see just behind him there, but watch Letzkerman here as he stops into his pit box, and he sits there for a while and doesn't get picked up by his crew. realizes he's actually too far forward, has to reverse and then get going. Now that's a huge blow, the amount of time that was wasted there when he didn't realize he was in the pit box. Renault gets going now, so Renault now jumps Lechterman, and you'll see here, there's Johansson not too far behind, and Watson comes through. So Lechterman, who opened a 10-second gap to Renault, 10-second gap with a poor pit stop, is now behind Johansson and Watson, which he should have been ahead, behind Renault, who jumped him in the pit. And watch, as he's leaving the pit lane here, who comes? Well, Laird comes flying through there. So a really poor pit stop by Lechterman. He could have potentially come out ahead of Watson, but that really slow pit stop means he comes out losing 3, potentially 4 places had he had a smooth pit stop. Now he's going to have a go at getting back past the Aston Martin of Laird. Now he's had the better of him this race overall, but the Aston Martin's not easy to overtake in a straight line. Has to try and get it done in the corners where it's slightly more difficult, but we know how good the Porsche can be in the corners. On board the Canadian here, let's have a look as they come into Piratella. Both cars getting a decent exit. No advantage gains here coming down to Acqua Minerale. Now this is where Laird made a few mistakes throughout the race. And he does once again, misses the apex, goes deep, gets a terrible exit, and Lechterman now much better exit. And there he goes, flies past the Aston Martin later on the brakes to make sure that he makes the move stick. And Lechterman now up into P9, and he gets at least one of those positions he lost back. As in the background there was a spinning car, which was Cupers, which had a big effect, because that spin by Cupers means he would be second in AM, and Tim Yee would be in the lead, which could mean that he wins the AM Championship. So really interesting battle going on back then, AM Championship. There you see the back Tan, he's being hounded by Byrne. Lap 33, well, big thing here, because at the start of this lap, the gap was 1.4 seconds between these two. Now, by the time we come into Piratella, 0.9 seconds. Watson gaining massively on Johansson, and everyone really scratching their heads, where has Johansson's pace gone? Now, Watson's pace had improved slightly, but Johansson's had dropped dramatically. And the answer was Johansson had underfueled the car. He'd underfueled the car, and on some of the slow corners like this chicane here at Variante Alta would be running in fuel-saving engine modes, which obviously means he didn't get as much power to the engine. And just look how close the Bentley of Watson is now as he comes down into Ravazza 1. Look how close that Bentley is. Doesn't get a great exit out of the second one. You see the car twitch slightly now. Watson would have wanted a better one. But here, Johansson has to use the main engine map, because if he doesn't, there is no chance of him keeping Watson behind. However, using the main engine map down the straight, well, that's using a lot of fuel when he doesn't have much left. Now watch Watson here as he gains and gains and gains and gains. Has a little look around the outside. Johansson moves across slightly, and the two of them almost come together there as they come through turn 2 and 3. Tamburello, and Watson drops off here, but watch here as Johansson will now be going back into the saving fuel engine mode. Just look how much the Bentley closes in on him again. So Johansson has a bit of dilemma there. Does he stay out and risk running out of fuel, or does he pit? Let's have a look at the replay there as they're coming down into turn 2 and 3. Because there's a come through turn 1 there. Towards turn 2 and 3. Watson gaining in the slipstream. He's going to go for the outside move. Brakes later. Watch there. You see the car on the left-hand side there of Johansson come across. And, well, that was a scary moment for Watson. He thought he was going to come across and the two of them were going to clip one another. Had to back out of it. But so far, so good. Clean racing by the two of them. Now, here we go. Johansson still running out of fuel. He's trying to use the engine maps effectively, but he knows if he uses them too hard, Watson will get past him. Now, if he runs out of fuel, he will DNF. If he pits, he could still potentially pick up some silver points, which would be better than no points at all. And I mean, look how close the Bentley is. At this point, Johansson thinks, oh, this Bentley's going to get past me, and I'm going to run the risk of running out of fuel if he doesn't. So he peels into the pits to refuel the car, and, well, it's so sad to see because these two have been going at it for the Silver Championship for most of the season, but we've never had a battle of the two of them on track. Most of the championship is Watson had some good results, Johansson didn't. Johansson had some bad results, Watson did. And that's how the championship went. And this was going to be the first time where we see the two of them on track actually fighting it out. And a bit of bad luck from Johansson, a bit of a driver mistake under fueling the car means he has to pit. And Watson moves up into second in class and sixth overall, so he will be happy with that, but obviously probably not the way he wanted to take that position. And it'll be interesting to see where Johansson comes out and whether he can pick up some silver points and not completely ruin this race. And Bobby Matthews comes across the line here with a massive Grand Slam, fastest lap, pole position, leading every lap, and that makes him BRT Solo League champion of 2021-2022. Absolutely brilliant drive from him, a dominant display, really well deserved. And you see Johansson there just ahead of him, he manages to complete one extra lap. P2 is Rosen Pashov, a silver on the overall podium and first in silver class. He comes home in P2. Brilliant race from him, very dominating there. Unfortunately, with burned mechanical error, hardware error, he didn't have too much pressure from behind. Fantozzi comes home in P3, just pipping the Frenchman Fauchard and fellow Ferrari driver Fauchard. Fantozzi gets another overall podium this season. He'll be really happy with that, being very consistent this season. He has the Brazilian. Fauchard comes home in P4. He'll be disappointed he didn't get the podium, but after struggling leading up to this race, I think he'll be happy with that result. Nordell comes home in P5. If it wasn't for that spin, well, he probably could have got more. Watson, P6, but importantly for him, P2 in silver class and ahead of rival Johansson after that lack of fuel. Renault P6 rounds off the silver podium. Just behind there you see Laird and Letkeman side by side. We'll have to have a look to see who finished ahead out of them. And rounding off the overall top 10 is Byrne. Really sad to see, as we've mentioned, with his hardware problems. However, he does have a really good recovery to get an overall podium and P5 in class. Some solid points from him. Now, the other important championship to look at, well, it was the AM Championship, wasn't it? And this is how it went on the final lap. Yi just ahead of Cupers. Yi, though, severe damage to the front of his Aston Martin as they come through Aqua Minerale. However, Cupers goes deep, which allows Yi to open up a bit of a gap. If Cupers doesn't get past Yi here, Yi seals the AM Championship at this race. They only have one more race after this one, since they did Misano at the start of the season, which is the next race for the Pro and Silver drivers. And Yi, now look at the gap, he's managed to pull ahead. Now, bar any mistakes into the two final corners, he will be crowned AM champion as he comes now here, misses the apex slightly, gets a bit of a squiggle on the curb. However, look at the gap, it is sufficient enough, and he comes round here. One little corner which is just a kink, there it is, flashing his lights, and Tim Yi, the Canadian, is crowned BRT Solo League AM champion, and he's been really great all year and really deserving of winning the AM class. Now, we talked about Letkeman, and there's Letkeman and there's Laird. That's how close the finish was between the two of them. Just 0.139 seconds separating those two at the line. Really close race. So, BRT Solo League Race 8 at the Autodromo Enzo Edino Ferrari, and it is Matthews that wins the race, completing 35 laps, pole position, fastest lap, leading every lap, and the Grand Slam. That's a great way to win your championship. P2 is Pashov, 29.9 seconds behind. That's how dominating Matthews was this weekend, especially with main title rival Babin not racing. Pashov had a great race, and that just shows, considering he was almost 30 seconds back. Fantozzi P3 pips fellow Ferrari Fauchard for the final podium spot. Good race from them too. Nordell, well, good recovery from him. If it wasn't for that spin because of Prevot, the back marker well, at the time actually wasn't a back marker, but if it wasn't for that spin, he maybe would have been able to bring the fight to Fantozzi and Fauchard, only finishing 7 seconds behind Fauchard and 10 behind Fantozzi. That's probably the amount of time he lost with that spin, so unfortunate for him, but damage limitation after starting on the back end of the grid. Watson, another car with damage limitation, starting in 19th, finishes 6th. Great race from him. As he manages to climb up the order. Renault manages to come 7th, just ahead of Letzkemann, obviously due to Letzkemann's slow pit stop. Very unfortunate for him. Driver error there. Laird in 9th. His first race, very, very action-packed race for him, but he seals a top 10 finish in his first race, so that is good news by the Scotsman. Good driving for him. Byrne again, another one, this time not even a driver error like with Johansson or Letzkemann. Really nothing he could have done. A hardware problem drops him all the way down outside the points originally, but he managed to climb himself back up to 10th, which is very good to see. A shame though that he couldn't fight for that silver class win and an overall podium. Tan again misses out on the points overall by 1 position. So many times that's happened to him this season. Very unlucky, but a good solid finish in the silver class. Herkaba comes 12th, Bosman in 13th, and Johansson, after having to refuel on the final lap, comes out in 14th in the end. Manages to complete 1 more lap. Gandhi is the first of the cars that was a lap down. So that is the top 15 of today's race. A really action-packed race, really good race to see between silver drivers and silver and pro drivers, with Laird getting in the mix there. Hopefully more to see the next few races and hopefully next season. So let's round off the final race results. McNamara 16th. He had a really unfortunate race. 2 accidents, one with Letzkemann and one with Gandhi. None of them his fault, him being tagged by both of them. He had the pace at one point in the race, but those incidents dropping him down the order. Yi in 17th, finishing just ahead of Cupers at the end there that we saw. And Prevot, well, a good start to the race after starting at the back due to the grid penalties, but with a few incidents drops all the way down to 19th. Only 1 DNF today, and that was the Canadian Robs, who did not finish the race. After good qualifying, very disappointing for him that he could not capitalise on that today. Look at the silver race results. Well, obviously, like I said, Pashov wins the silver class, and he puts that fight on Watson for the championship. Watson finishing 23 seconds behind in the end, but he'll be happy nonetheless, considering he started at the back of the grid. Renault gets another silver podium, considering he used to be an AM driver. Really impressive for him. Letzkemann in P4, Byrne P5, good recovery, although could have been a battle for the class win with Pashov. Tan P6, Herkaba P7, Bosman P8. Decent race from him, not the best of race starts, but still gets silver points. Johansson gets P9, so not the most points, but points nonetheless, better than running out of fuel on track and DNFing. And Gandhi rounds off the top 10. McNamara misses out on the silver points, and Robs, like we mentioned, DNFing from the race. Well, only 3 AMs, not the first time we've seen this, so a bit hard to miss out on the podium. But importantly, it was Yi that brought home the AM class win, and that obviously meant he won the championship. Cooper's only finishing 1.6 seconds behind in the end. He would have been disappointed he couldn't get that win and bring the championship onto the final race. And Prevot, a lap down, rounds off the AM podium and the AM drivers there in P3. Race 9 for them, as mentioned. They have already raced at Misano, so their last race is at Hungaroring with everyone else. So the overall standings, well, like mentioned, Bobby Matthews is the BRT champion this season, a new champion crowned, and well deserved by Matthews, as shown in this race, as he wins the championship on 135 points, but still 2 races to go. Babin on 72, obviously not racing today. He manages to hold on to second, but Nordell closes the gap to just 2 points. Them two will be battling it out for second in the championship. Fantozzi and Fashard move ahead of Stoop and Beaches, though two not racing today, and Fantozzi and Fashard having great results move them into 4th and 5th, and Stoop and Beaches moving down to 6th and 7th. Watson jumps ahead of Johansson by only 1 point. Those two going at it and the Silver Championship and in the overall championship. Maybe something to come next season when they are pro drivers. Pashov jumps ahead into the top 10 with his solid result, 2nd overall, so really good from him. Those three silver drivers probably going to be pro to pro next season. Wallace, Stosic, Martinovic and Murray all move down below Pashov. Those two not those all of those not racing today, and another driver not racing today was Riccardi, who remains in 15th. In the silver standings, well, the only championship not to be decided yet, and Watson remains ahead on 105 points. But with Pashov's championship class win, that means the gap is now down to only 16 points. So it's getting close up there at the top. Johansson actually moved down to 3rd now on 77, which is disappointing for him considering it was a good race today. So he's now 28 points behind. So going to be a stretch. He's made it difficult for himself with that underfueling, but not out of reach. Robs remains in 4th, even though he DNF'd. He's well ahead of the cars behind him at the moment. Herkeber on 59 in 5th. He moves ahead of Esteban and Leiter. Tan remains in 8th on 49. Renault moves ahead of Byrne, which is unfortunate for Byrne because he could have had such a good result. But Byrne's still remaining in the top 10 for now on 42. Letkeman moves ahead of Bosman and Gandhi with his good results. The last few races in P11, and Hoyer and McNamara remain in 14th, 15th, with McNamara just missing out on the silver points in today's race. And finally, the AM classifications. Well, Yi, like we said, seals the championship on 143 points. Really good display from him. He was even battling some silver drivers this season. So really good result from him. Cupers in P2, 10 points ahead of Prevot in P3, who's 10 points ahead of Chin. But the battle for 2nd, 3rd and 4th is still on to the final race for these guys, which will be at the Hungaroring. And Joe Art, Volts and Vecino, those three not racing, as well as Chin not racing, so they haven't gone anywhere. So no changes, just changes in the gaps between the drivers after today's race. So lastly, we go on to the manufacturer classification, and again, no changes here. However, changes in the gaps between teams. Aston Martin increasing their gap over Ferrari with Bobby's display, and a few of the Aston drivers gaining points. Ferrari, though, a solid race from them, especially with Fantozzi and Fashard in 3rd and 4th. So they increase their gap over Porsche to try and secure that 2nd place. Porsche have a decent gap over McLaren for 3rd. Those top 3 looking like they're going to end the top 3 manufacturers. McLaren remaining on 105. Mercedes on 84. Bentley closed the gap to them on 50. Imagine if Byrne didn't have the issue. That gap could have been closed even more, and we could have seen a good battle between Mercedes and Bentley for that P5 spot out of the manufacturers. Those two, the two cars performing the best out of the cars that don't have many drivers, and which one's going to come out on top is going to be very interesting to see. But Mercedes are in the driving seat at the moment, 34 points ahead. Lamborghini and Audi not scoring any points since they don't have drivers representing them anymore for the remainder of this season, so they remain in 7th and 8th on 10 and 6 points.